Do not move yet, my child. Stay here for one moment longer, because I am speaking from the place where I have watched you breaking in silence. Before you turn your attention somewhere else, before another voice reaches you, before another thought pulls you away, listen to me now. I know how quickly you try to continue, as if everything inside you is still steady. I know how often you keep walking while something in you is quietly falling apart. But I am stopping you here because this moment is not small to me. I have been watching what you have carried in secret, and I will not remain silent while you continue holding what is pressing too deeply against your heart. I am speaking to you from the place where your hidden tears have already reached me. I am speaking from the place where every sigh you never explained has already been heard. I am speaking from the place where your quiet nights, your tired mornings, your silent pauses, and the moments when you looked fine to others but felt weak inside were never invisible. You thought perhaps no one saw how much effort it took just to keep your face calm. You thought perhaps no one noticed how often you swallowed words because you did not know how to explain what was happening within you. But I saw it all, and that is why I am calling you now before you move one step further carrying this same weight. I am crying for you because I see what you keep carrying while pretending to be strong. I see how often you tell yourself that you can manage one more day, one more burden, one more hidden struggle, one more heavy thought, one more silent fear. I see how you have learned to answer others while hiding your own inward ache. I see how you have trained yourself to remain useful, available, responsive, and steady even while your own heart has been asking quietly for rest. And I tell you now that what you are carrying has touched me deeply because you were never meant to live by forcing strength where healing is needed. What you are holding right now is hurting you more deeply than you admit. Even you do not fully realize how deeply it has entered your thoughts, how strongly it has shaped your emotions, how quietly it has affected your peace. Some burdens become so familiar that a person stops noticing how much they weigh until their spirit begins to weaken beneath them. What you call normal tiredness is not always simple tiredness. What you call just another difficult day is not always ordinary pressure. There are things inside you that have stayed too long, and because they stayed quietly, you have learned to function beside them without realizing how much strength they continue to take from you. I know the moments you never explained to anyone. I know the nights when you were surrounded by silence, yet your thoughts would not rest. I know when you lay down hoping sleep would soften the heaviness, but even after resting your body, your spirit still woke carrying the same weight. I know the times you sat alone and felt your chest tighten for reasons you could not fully name. I know when your eyes became wet but you quickly wiped them away because no one else was there to understand why. I know the private moments when you stared ahead and felt too many things at once: fear, disappointment, confusion, tiredness, and a longing for relief you could not explain clearly. This word is not for everyone. It is for the one who has learned how to smile while quietly collapsing inside. It is for the one who still answers messages, still speaks kindly, still appears present, yet inwardly feels stretched thin in ways nobody fully sees. It is for the one who continues moving through responsibilities while carrying hidden heaviness in the center of the heart. It is for the one who says, "I'm fine," while inwardly hoping someone might somehow notice that fine is not what the soul feels like anymore. You have become skilled at surviving in silence. You have learned how to continue even when your spirit feels tired. You have learned how to stand in front of others while hiding how deeply certain thoughts have followed you. But surviving and healing are not the same thing. Enduring and being restored are not the same thing. I did not create you merely to endure every burden until you become numb. I created you for closeness with me, for moments where what weighs on you is placed down rather than carried until your inner strength begins to crack. So I tell you now, do this now, not later, because delay is making the weight heavier. Every time you say tomorrow, the burden remains where it is. Every time you decide to carry it one more day, it learns your rhythm and settles deeper into your inner life. Every postponed surrender gives heaviness more room than it deserves. I am not asking because I want a perfect prayer from you. I am asking because your soul needs release now, not after another long night, not after another day of pretending you are less affected than you truly are. Comment Jesus, I'm nothing without you if He is your only foundation. You were never created to survive by carrying everything alone. Hear that deeply. You were never built to hold every fear, every unanswered question, every disappointment, every old wound, every regret, every pressure, and still expect your spirit to remain untouched. There are weights that were never designed for your hands to keep. There are sorrows that should have been brought to me long before they hardened into silent heaviness. And what remains unplaced at my feet may become heavier by tomorrow. This is not because I want to frighten you, but because what stays hidden often grows roots. The burden rarely remains the same size when it is fed by silence and delay. Fear becomes stronger when repeated inwardly without release. Pain becomes heavy when protected instead of surrendered. Guilt becomes sharper when carried privately for too long. Even disappointment becomes heavier when it is allowed to settle without being opened before me. You may already feel tired in ways sleep has not fixed. You may have noticed that rest does not fully restore what feels drained inside. You sleep, but the inward heaviness returns. You pause, but your mind still carries pressure. You try to distract yourself, yet something still waits beneath the surface. This is because some tiredness is not physical first, it is emotional, spiritual, inward. The body lies down, but the heart remains standing under weight. I see how close your heart is to emotional overload even if nobody else can see it. I see the point where one more hidden pressure could become too much. I see how carefully you have held yourself together. I see how often you have said little because explaining everything felt harder than remaining silent. I see how close you have come to moments where tears wanted to speak before words could form. Even when others believed you were simply quiet, I knew there were deeper things happening within you. Before you answer another person, answer me in this moment. Before you continue solving, replying, helping, fixing, and carrying, stop here and let your heart become honest before me. I am not asking for polished language. I am asking for truth. I am asking you to stop pretending with me, because I already know what you are carrying. I already know the burden by name, even if you have not spoken it aloud. What you are carrying is affecting more than you realize. It is touching your peace. It is shaping how clearly you think. It is weakening your strength in quiet ways. It is changing how quickly fear rises. It is influencing how deeply joy can settle. Burdens do not stay contained in one corner of the soul. They spread quietly through thoughts, reactions, energy, and hope. Perhaps the burden is fear, the fear that something painful may return, the fear that what you hope for may fail again. Perhaps it is guilt, something you still replay inwardly, something you wish had gone differently. Perhaps it is pain from words spoken long ago that still echo when you least expect them. Perhaps it is disappointment that settled after waiting too long for something that did not happen. Perhaps hidden anger has remained inside because you never felt free to release it honestly. Perhaps silent grief still lingers because part of your heart is not fully healed from what was lost. Whatever it is, One honest surrender in this moment can begin changing everything inside. Not everything outside must change first for peace to begin. Sometimes the first change happens when the burden leaves your hands and enters mine. Sometimes relief begins before circumstances move, because surrender opens space where pressure had ruled. Please support our channel. Our work is to bring happiness in your life and devotion to God. And if you want, you can support to us through Ko-Fi. Link is given in description. Do not postpone the release your soul needs now. Not because tomorrow will never come, but because today already carries the invitation. Why continue holding what can be placed down? Why keep protecting pain as if carrying it longer proves strength? Why remain silent when I am already here, already listening, already waiting? So bring it here now. Not after another hour of overthinking. Not after another conversation. Not after another attempt to carry it alone. Drop it here, because I am already waiting where your surrender begins. I am not standing far from you. I am not asking from a distance. I am here, at the place where your honesty opens, at the place where hidden tears become prayer, at the place where your tired heart no longer has to pretend it is strong enough for every weight. Drop it here, my child. Let this moment become the place where your heart finally stops holding what was never meant to remain there. My child, I stopped you before you went further because this interruption is intentional. I did not speak into this moment by chance, and I did not call your attention without purpose. Before you reached this point in your day, before your thoughts moved through all the things you planned to do, before your heart added one more silent burden to what it was already carrying, I had already chosen this moment to meet you. I knew where your mind would be. I knew how your emotions would feel beneath the surface. I knew what had already touched your spirit before anyone else noticed anything at all. That is why I did not wait until later. That is why I reached for you now, while you are still in the middle of everything, because some moments cannot be delayed when the soul has already carried too much. Heaven arranged this exact moment long before you understood why your attention stopped here. You may think you simply paused because something caught your eye, because a word held your focus, because for a second your mind became curious. But deeper than curiosity, there was an inward pull, and that inward pull was not random. There are many voices around you every day, many things asking for your time, many sounds moving around your life. Yet this moment opened because I wanted your heart still enough to hear me before the day carried you deeper into silence again. You did not reach this word by accident. You did not land here because of coincidence. I allowed your attention to stop because I knew your spirit needed interruption before your hidden heaviness became even harder to carry. I know how often you continue without stopping. I know how often you keep moving even when something inside you is asking quietly for relief. You have become skilled at continuing through tiredness. You know how to answer when spoken to. You know how to complete what needs to be done. You know how to stay present enough that others believe you are managing. But I also know the truth beneath what others see. I know when your smile costs more energy than anyone realizes. I know when silence becomes the only way you keep certain feelings hidden. I know when your heart says little because explaining your weight feels harder than carrying it quietly. That is why I tell you again. This interruption is not accidental. I stepped into this moment because I saw what was already building in you today. Before this hour arrived, there were already thoughts gathering inside you. Some were old thoughts returning. Some were new pressures quietly joining what you already felt. Some were fears that entered without invitation. Some were emotions you tried to ignore because there seemed to be no space to sit with them. I saw all of it. I saw the moment your mind became heavier even while your body kept moving. I saw the inward tiredness that no one around you could fully read. You may think the day had not yet become too heavy, but I know how hidden heaviness grows when it is not interrupted. I know how one silent burden invites another. I know how a person can begin the day carrying something small, then by evening wonder why everything feels harder than expected. Emotional weight rarely arrives all at once. Often it gathers quietly, layer after layer, until the heart begins to feel pressure it cannot explain. That is why I came now, before more layers settled, before one more hidden feeling made the inner room even heavier. Divine interruption often comes before deeper collapse because I love you too much to remain silent while you continue carrying what is slowly draining you. I do not wait until tears become visible before I care. I do not wait until words finally break from your mouth before I pay attention. I see the signs earlier than you do. I notice when your spirit begins withdrawing inward. I notice when thoughts become heavier than usual. I notice when your breathing changes because something inside feels too full. I notice when you become quiet not because peace has come, but because you are tired of explaining what even you struggle to name. There are times when people believe they are still fine because they are still functioning. They say, I am managing, because nothing has fully stopped around them. But functioning is not always peace. Continuing is not always strength. A person can still complete tasks while inwardly growing weaker under hidden pressure. A person can still answer others while feeling close to emotional exhaustion. A person can still appear calm while carrying thoughts that are pressing deeply beneath the surface. This is why I interrupt before collapse becomes visible. I speak while there is still time to release what has not yet become too heavy to name. You must not continue carrying silently, as if silence alone will solve what is pressing on you. Silence can hide pain, but it does not always heal it. Silence can delay expression, but it cannot remove burden by itself. You have remained silent in many moments because speaking felt difficult, because you believed perhaps it would pass, because you hoped tomorrow would feel lighter. But some things do not become lighter simply because time moves. Some things become lighter only when they are placed down honestly. Right, Lord, breathe new life into me if you're longing for His renewal. I know how quickly you tell yourself, I will deal with it later. I know how often you choose one more hour of carrying because there seems to be no right moment to stop. Yet the burden does not disappear while you postpone it. It waits quietly inside, shaping your thoughts, shaping your mood, shaping how deeply peace can settle. This is why urgency matters now. Not panic, not fear, but honesty. The soul should not keep carrying what already asks for release. There is hidden exhaustion in you that others may never fully see. I see how tired you are in ways that sleep has not fully repaired. I see how some mornings begin with heaviness before anything even happens. I see how certain thoughts arrive early, before your day has fully started. I see how your body may continue, yet your spirit already feels stretched before noon arrives. Hidden exhaustion is difficult because people around you often notice only what you continue doing, not what it costs you inwardly to keep doing it. Even small things now can feel larger than they should because hidden exhaustion changes how the heart receives ordinary moments. A small disappointment feels heavier. A simple delay feels sharper. A short silence can suddenly carry too much meaning. When the inner self is tired, even ordinary events touch deeper places. This is not because you are weak. It is because your heart hath been carrying more than it admits. I know there are moments when you have asked yourself why you feel so full inside when nothing dramatic happened that day. That confusion comes because much of what weighs on you did not begin today. Some of it has been gathering quietly over many days. Some of it has remained because you kept choosing to stay strong without fully resting inwardly. Some of it stayed because you believed others needed your steadiness more than you needed your own release. But listen carefully. I stopped you now because I do not want hidden exhaustion to become your normal language. I do not want you to call silent heaviness ordinary simply because it has stayed nearby. I do not want you to mistake emotional pressure for strength just because you have learned how to continue beside it. Heaven often interrupts when a person is about to add one more burden to a heart already near its limit. That is what this moment is. I saw how close your inner world was to becoming too crowded again today. I saw how certain thoughts were already gathering force. I saw how one more silent hour could deepen what should instead be brought into light. So I call you gently, but clearly, stop here for this moment. Let this interruption matter. Let this become more than another passing word. Breathe slowly and admit to yourself what you have tried to carry quietly. Not because I do not already know, but because your own heart needs honesty before peace can deepen. You do not have to explain everything perfectly to me. I am not asking for polished language. I am asking you not to move forward pretending you are less affected than you truly are. I am asking you not to cover hidden tiredness with another layer of silence. I am asking you not to protect burdens simply because they have become familiar. This interruption is love, my child. It is not pressure. It is not accusation. It is me refusing to let you walk deeper into the day unheard while your spirit quietly asks for relief. It is me standing in front of your silent exhaustion and saying, you do not have to carry this one step further before speaking to me. So stay here a little longer. Let your heart soften instead of tightening again. Let your inward room become honest. Heaven arranged this exact moment because your hidden exhaustion mattered enough for me to stop you before you went further. Before one more layer settled. Before one more silent hour convinced you that carrying alone was still the answer. My child, the weight you keep calling strength is not strength in the way you believe it is. I know why you learned to carry so much without speaking. I know why you became the kind of person who keeps going even when something inside is asking for rest. Life taught you early that stopping was not always an option. Pain taught you how to remain standing while your heart was still trying to understand what it had just felt. Disappointment taught you how to move forward even when answers did not come. Responsibility taught you that many things would still need your attention even on days when your own spirit felt weak. Little by little, you learned how to survive by carrying more than you were meant to hold. At first it may have seemed necessary. There were moments when no one else fully understood what was happening inside you. So you gathered yourself and continued. There were days when speaking would have taken too much energy, so you chose silence and kept walking. There were seasons when people expected your strength, and because they needed something from you, you gave what you had, even when you felt inwardly tired. Over time, what began as survival slowly became habit. What began as temporary endurance slowly became the way you handled everything. And now there are burdens you no longer question because carrying them has become normal to you. But I need you to understand that survival can teach patterns that look strong while quietly hurting the heart. A person can become so used to holding weight that they forget how heavy it truly is. A person can call constant pressure normal simply because it has stayed long enough to feel familiar. You have carried thoughts, emotions, worries, and responsibility so often that sometimes you no longer notice the inward cost until your spirit suddenly feels tired without clear explanation. There are hidden burdens in you that wear the clothing of responsibility. Some things you call duty are partly fear. Some things you call maturity are partly the habit of never allowing yourself to lean. Some things you call being dependable are also ways you have protected yourself from admitting how much you need relief. Responsibility is good when held in right measure, but when responsibility becomes the place where every burden hides, the heart begins carrying what it was never meant to keep alone. You tell yourself that you must think ahead, that you must remain prepared, that you must hold everything together because if you loosen your grip, something may fall apart. So you carry not only what belongs to today, but also what might happen tomorrow. You carry possible outcomes that have not arrived. You carry conversations that have not happened. You carry fear about situations you cannot yet control. You carry emotional weight for things that are not fully yours to hold, yet because you care deeply, you still place them on your own shoulders. Sometimes hidden burdens look like constant mental checking, always reviewing what still needs attention, always thinking about what may go wrong, always returning to unfinished concerns. Sometimes they look like emotional guarding, staying alert because part of you fears what disappointment might bring again. Sometimes they look like silent pressure, feeling responsible for keeping peace, keeping things working, keeping others comfortable, while your own inward world remains unattended. You call this endurance strength because you have survived much through it. And yes, endurance has helped you continue through difficult places. But endurance alone is not always healing. Endurance alone is not always wisdom. Endurance without release can become a quiet form of damage because the soul was not created to hold every burden without rest. Inside you, damage begins forming when pressure remains too long without honest surrender. It does not always appear suddenly. Often it begins quietly. Peace becomes harder to keep. Small things begin affecting you more deeply than before. A short delay feels heavier than it should. A simple word touches hidden tenderness quickly. Thoughts become tired more easily. Patience shortens without clear reason. The heart becomes sensitive in ways you cannot explain because something inside has been carrying too much for too long. You may still function outwardly and believe that means everything is under control. You still answer people. You still complete tasks. You still move through your day. You still speak, work, plan, and continue. But functioning outwardly does not always reveal what inward fatigue is doing quietly beneath the surface. Many people appear steady while hidden weariness continues growing inside them. I see the emotional fatigue beneath your outward functioning. I see the moments when speaking feels harder than usual even though nothing dramatic happened. I see when your mind becomes tired not because the day was impossible, but because your inner world was already carrying too much before the day even fully began. I see when you sit still for a moment and suddenly feel the weight more clearly because activity had been hiding it. Emotional fatigue often speaks softly. It does not always arrive as tears. Sometimes it appears as numbness. Sometimes it appears as difficulty feeling excited even when something good happens. Sometimes it appears as quiet heaviness that returns at strange times. Sometimes it appears as wanting silence because too many inward voices already feel active. Sometimes it appears as tiredness that rest does not fully remove. You may have noticed that certain days feel heavier without clear reason. This is because hidden weight does not always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it simply remains present until the soul begins showing signs that carrying has become too constant. The body may rest, yet the mind remains active. The day may appear ordinary, yet inwardly something still feels stretched. Even when no crisis is happening, your spirit may still feel as if it has not truly put down what it has been holding. Carrying too much has become dangerous because when burdens remain too long, they begin shaping how you see everything. Fear begins speaking faster than peace. Small concerns begin appearing larger than they are. Hope feels harder to hold steadily. Joy struggles to stay because inward pressure leaves little room for it. Even simple decisions become heavier because the heart is already tired before the decision arrives. Danger does not always mean sudden collapse. Sometimes danger is slow hardening. A heart that carries too much too long can begin protecting itself in ways that make closeness harder. A tired spirit can become quiet not because peace has come, but because energy for openness feels low. A person can stop expecting relief because carrying has become the normal rhythm. This is why I speak now with tenderness but also seriousness. Do not mistake long carrying for healthy strength. There is a difference between faithful endurance and silent overload. Faithful endurance keeps the heart connected to me even while walking through difficulty. Silent overload often keeps everything inside while hoping the burden somehow becomes lighter by itself. The weight you keep calling strength has also taught you to feel guilty for resting inwardly. Sometimes when you pause, thoughts quickly return telling you there is still more to think about, still more to solve, still more to prepare for. Rest becomes difficult because your mind has learned constant alertness. But a heart cannot remain healthy if it never truly releases what it cannot control. You were never meant to prove strength by carrying endlessly. True strength often appears in surrender more than in silent endurance. True strength appears when a soul finally admits, "This is too heavy to keep holding alone." True strength trusts that laying something before me is not failure but wisdom. What you call strength may have helped you survive earlier seasons, but now I am showing you that survival patterns cannot remain forever if peace is to deepen. What once protected you may now be exhausting you. What once kept you moving may now be draining your ability to feel light again. And still, I do not speak this to condemn you. I speak it because I love you enough to name what hidden fatigue hath been doing quietly. I want you to see that some burdens you have honored, as proof of maturity, are actually asking to be released. Some weights you thought proved your loyalty are now quietly asking for surrender. There are things that do belong to your care, yes. But there are also things you have kept that belong in my hands. Not every future concern belongs in your thoughts tonight. Not every fear deserves repeated attention. Not every emotional wound should remain protected simply because it has stayed familiar. The heart begins healing when it no longer treats overload as identity. You are not the weight you carry. You are not defined by how much pressure you can survive silently. You are not measured by how long you can continue without asking for inward relief. So notice honestly what you have called strength. Notice what hath been hidden beneath responsibility. Notice what your spirit has been carrying simply because you learned long ago how to continue. And as you notice it, understand this gently. What is too heavy should not remain hidden just because you have grown skilled at holding it. The soul still needs release even when the face looks calm. I am here to teach you again that true strength is not in how much you can silently endure, but in how deeply you trust me with what your hands were never meant to hold forever. My child, I need you to understand why I am speaking with such tenderness to you now, because my words are not coming from distance. They are coming from love that has remained near you even in the moments when you believed you were carrying everything alone. I am crying while watching you carry this because what is happening inside you matters deeply to me. Your hidden suffering is not small in my sight simply because others cannot see it. The weight that sits quietly in your chest, the heaviness you push down so no one asks questions, the silent ache you continue walking with, none of it passes before me as if it means nothing. I feel what touches you more deeply than you know, and I do not watch your inward struggle without feeling grief when I see how long you have tried to bear it without bringing it fully into my hands. You may think that because your pain is quiet, it does not deserve attention. You may think that because you are still functioning, still speaking, still answering, still moving through your day, perhaps what you feel is not serious enough to stop for. But I tell you that hidden suffering often reaches deeper than visible tears because it lives where words are hardest to form. Some pain stays so silent that even the one carrying it forgets how deeply it has settled. Yet silence does not make it invisible to me. Silence does not reduce its weight in heaven. Silence does not make me look away. I am not crying because I am weak before your pain. I'm crying because love does not remain untouched when someone beloved suffers quietly for too long. Love notices. Love responds. Love feels grief when it sees a heart carrying more than it should. You were never just another passing life to me, never another distant soul moving through days without being known. I know the tone of your silence. I know the kind of tiredness that enters your eyes when no one else notices. I know the moments when you stop speaking not because there is nothing to say, but because explaining what you feel seems harder than holding it privately. There are moments when you sit among others and look calm while inwardly carrying thoughts that press against your heart. There are moments when you answer kindly while another part of you feels weak and unseen. There are moments when you continue doing what is needed, yet inwardly something in you is asking quietly for relief. When those moments happen, I am there. I do not arrive later after the moment has passed. I am there while it happens, feeling what touches your spirit, hearing what you do not say aloud. My grief over hidden suffering comes from knowing how often you have learned to continue while hurting. I have watched you choose silence because you did not want to burden others. I have watched you lower your eyes because tears fell too near. I have watched you breathe slowly just to steady emotions that wanted to rise. I have watched you decide to keep moving because life did not pause simply because your heart felt heavy. Each time you did that, I understood not only the action, but the cost. There were moments when you believed no one noticed because no one asked. There were moments when your silence remained untouched because the world around you kept moving. But the absence of human attention has never meant absence of divine attention. Heaven does not miss what earth overlooks. What others pass by without seeing remains fully known before me. Say, Father, you're my unshakable hope if you're standing on His promises. And share this video.